Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, depending on where you are. Nice to see everyone hopping in here. We'll give everyone just a minute before we get started. Hello, Miriam. Nice to see you. Christine, nice to see you. Martha, of course, nice to see you. Carlos, nice to see you. As well as Jermine, is that right? Jermine or Jermine? I don't want to get it wrong. Jermine? Jermine, thank you. Nice to see you. Andrea, of course, hello. Nice to see you. Jody, welcome. Jody, I was just out your way a couple of weeks ago doing some hiking up in the mountains. Colorado is such a wonderful place to visit, and never really spent a lot of time there doing some hiking before, but had a wonderful time.
Yeah, it's great. It's finally cooling off a little bit.
Was it? Yeah, when we were there were all of the fires, so we couldn't really see very well. All of the forest fires were, blowing the smoke in at that time. I guess it was the end of July. All right, well, welcome everyone. My name is David Severance. So nice to be here with you today as we kick off a new learning opportunity that we're all very excited about here at CSC for all of you. These calls going forward are going to be mastermind calls. Many of you have told us that you are interested in having the opportunity to discuss many of the different topics that we share with you every week in a kind of a meaningful and thoughtful way, having a little more time to talk about what are the nuances and the ways to master the different skills and situations. And so every Wednesday at this time, we're going to be having mastermind calls. So I'll take just a few minutes today to introduce myself and talk a little bit about what mastermind calls are, and then we'll hop into it. I should note that these calls will be hosted by myself and Kate Bauer. So an introduction to myself, my name is David Severance. If you don't know me, I've been here at CSC since the very beginning. Chirag and I first got to know each other in 2017 when he joined a year-long leadership program that I run. I take 20 people a year and put them through a kind of a deep leadership learning process for themselves and how they want to apply that to their life and their business. So he spent a year with me. We had a lot of great conversations about leadership and business and many other things. And then when he formed CSC, he said, "Hey, David, come along. I want you to be a part of this." And I said, "Great, I'm very excited." So I've been a coach for 20 years. I've worked with Fortune 500 folks. I've worked with small startups, mid-sized businesses, leaders and teams in North America, Europe, the Middle East, Eastern Asia, South America. Bring a very broad kind of view on what it takes to create powerful impact and influence on others. And so whether you want to connect with your clients, whether you want to influence clients, whether you want to anticipate their needs, whether you want to lead a team, all of these things are things that I talk about with the folks that I work with here at CSC. So for the last 4 years, Chirag and I have facilitated 2 mastermind groups here. I've also been doing Wednesday calls on a variety of topics. Many of you know me from those calls. And I also coach many of you as well, just like Chirag does each week. So I'm really excited to kick off this new learning opportunity for everyone. So every Wednesday at this time, we'll be having these mastermind calls. Let me take just a minute to talk about what a mastermind is. First, let me just ask everybody, please just raise your hand. How many of you have participated in a mastermind group in the past? Okay. And also please raise your hand. How many of you are not exactly sure what a mastermind group entails? Okay, great. So happy to talk a little bit about it. I'm going to share a couple of things today, just some foundational things to keep in mind as we go forward. This is a unique learning opportunity for everyone, and we're really excited to bring it all to all of you because it really offers some opportunities for you to grow yourself and grow your business in ways that aren't necessarily as easy to do or as possible through our regular kinds of calls. So we'll make a distinction today between, let's say, training and masterminds. If training is an experience where someone with expertise and knowledge shares it with others, and those people are primarily observing or absorbing that particular knowledge, we might call that training or learning or teaching or something like that. A mastermind group is a very different kind of learning experience. Some of you may have experienced some version of this somewhere else in your life, or if you're part of any of our affinity groups, there's probably an element of the mastermind approach or the mastermind experience in there as well. So we'll be looking forward to kind of doing this with all of you. And I want to say it takes a little bit of practice to become really good at participating in a mastermind group. So if you're not sure how to participate, if you're not sure whether to speak up or something, don't worry about it. There's no right and wrong here. But over the next kind of 2 or 3 conversations that we have, I think all of you will feel more comfortable about how you can participate and support each other to learn. So let me share a couple of slides that just kind of talk about some basic stuff about masterminds, and then we'll get started with some conversation. Okay. Okay, great. So mastermind groups. So as I said, Kate Bauer and myself will be hosting these. We're actually going to alternate each week. She'll be here with you one week, I'll be here the next week, and so on, back and forth. Now, for those of you who know Kate, very dynamic, very smart, bright, hardworking person, has a lot of insight into how to be successful as an agent. Very different background from myself, and so we'll be thinking about different things, and we share our own expertise and experiences in different ways. But our background is not as important in the mastermind setting as it is in a training or teaching, coaching kind of a setting. So I only say that for you to understand that the way that some of the things that I might be addressing with all of you might be a little bit different from what Kate's doing. And that, of course, helps you cover more bases. So let's talk a little bit about masterminds. So who are masterminds for? Well, masterminds are for any group of people that have a common perspective or a common situation in life. That is, a group of people who may have similar goals, they may have similar interests, they may have similar problems or difficulties that they need to deal with, or they may have certain opportunities in common. And so examples of this obviously would be real estate agents, what we're talking about, new mothers, small business owners, et cetera. Any group of people that have something in common with others and can share and learn from each other's experience. And so there are masterminds that exist all around the world for virtually every kind of interest group. And some of them are facilitated by outside facilitators. Some of them are kind of like self-facilitated by whoever is part of the group. They run a little bit more democratically or something like that. But in any case, it's for people who are coming to the situation with a similar experience in life or a similar opportunity. Now, what's the purpose of it? Well, it's quite simple. It's a learning opportunity, and the learning opportunity in a mastermind is different from one in a training situation. In a training situation, it tends to be a much more individualized experience. That is, you're there as a student or as a learner, and you're listening to someone, or you're watching a video online, or you're listening to a podcast. It's kind of a one-directional thing, and you're limited by your own ability to think about whatever it is you're hearing or your own experiences. A mastermind, on the other hand, it provides the opportunity for you to share your own expertise and learn from the expertise of many, many others who are sharing the journey with you. We've done these masterminds for a couple of groups in the past, and we wanted to make them available to everybody. So we're delighted to offer that to everybody here. And so we want everyone to understand that the opportunity for you is to come in with a mindset that we've got 30, 40, 50 great people here on the call who have wonderful experience, who have wonderful knowledge, talent, skills, experiences, so much that everyone can contribute to each other. And as we've said in the past, one of our foundational values at CSC is community. And so we want to be able to have everyone leverage the value of the community that's already there at CSC. And so this is one way we're going to do that. Sorry, let me just pull out one thing. Realize I don't have my clock in front of me. Okay, now I do. Okay, so the opportunity here is to leverage the strengths, the knowledge, the experience of all the people that we're sharing this journey with all the time in a new way, rather than just listening to Shrag's, genius or somebody else's, input. You've got the opportunity to learn from so many others. So what do we do with this? Well, how is it that we can be effective with each other? How is it that we can actually help each other be make this learning environment as rich as possible? Here are some best practices that I want everybody to keep in mind. We need to understand that this is a co-created experience, very different from when you're just listening to somebody online or you're listening to a podcast or something. There's not much that you input to the experience. But in a mastermind, everyone contributes to the experience by what they put into that space. We're in this shared space together. And so if you've been in our affinity groups and different people are speaking up or offering contributions or whatever, that's when the magic happens. So everyone needs to come in with a mindset that these calls on Wednesdays are going to be opportunities for you to engage with us and with each other in new ways that are a little bit different from the way you typically might on Mondays and Tuesdays, for example. Think about what you'd like to bring to share with the group, or a question that you have or something that you might want to ask of the group. Now, we're probably going to have themes as we go ahead, and we're going to be looking for input from all of you about what it is you would like to kind of focus these mastermind discussions on. So I'm going to encourage all of you to send an email to me or to Kate. I'm David at Shragshaw Coaching. And you can send something to Kate at Shragshaw Coaching as well, or you can send it to her at Kate Bauer at Compass. But we want your input on the things, the topics, and kind of areas of discussion that are most important to you. We want to make sure that we're addressing those things over time. So after today's call, when you have a chance to sit down for 5 minutes and think about, wow, I've got a great new discussion space here that I can engage other people on, what would I like to explore in those cases? And just send us a list or a couple of bullet points or whatever it is that you think might be useful for you to be successful in your business. We'll put all that together and we'll find a way to work it forward. We'll also, of course, be spending time talking about topics that Chirag is addressing and sharing along the way so that we can have a little further in-depth discussion and exploration about how to really leverage those things and get the most out of those tactics and techniques and things. So bring something to share and ask. Third, make it universal. It's really important that when you bring something to the group that you're sharing something that everyone can learn from and benefit from. For example, by contrast, if someone raised their hand and said, yeah, I say, yeah, go ahead, talk. And they say, well, David, I've got this client and he's got this house with a kind of a funny second staircase. And the second staircase is not really a real staircase. I don't even know what it is. It's kind of hidden and it's got this broken stair on the third step. And I told the guy he ought to repair that before he shows the house, but it's made out of linden wood and he doesn't want to replace it with oak or maple or any kind of wood. He wants linden wood. So David, where can I get linden wood? Well, you know what? That's a great question that you may have, but I don't think it offers a lot of value to everybody else on the call because not everybody cares where you're going to get linden wood. Now, if everybody did, we could talk all about linden wood. But the point is, when you share whatever your situations are, ask yourself, am I talking about something that's peculiar to me? If so, ask David or another coach offline. And if it's a more of a universal situation that lots of other people have probably experienced or probably will experience, absolutely put it into the space. And fourth, and this is one that, we may push you a little bit on from time to time, really depends. Some people tend to talk longer, some people tend to talk shorter. But it's important that we allow as much interaction as possible between everyone in a mastermind group. So we've got 30 minutes each week. Please try not to hog it all. Say what you have to say. Think about it ahead of time so that you can say it in a rather brief rather than wandering way, and then see how somebody responds. The more space that we can create for everyone to contribute to the experience, the better off we all are. So let me pull this down. I'll just ask if anybody has any questions about this. Okay, does anyone have a question? If you do, please drop it into the chat. Any questions about anything that I have that I've talked about so far? And to get to Mavis, yes, the schedule of the calls is a little bit different. We will be going back to 11:30. Thanks for mentioning that. Starting next week, we will be going back to the 11:30 Eastern time slot for these calls. It just happened this week for a variety of logistical reasons that 12:30 was the time. So if anybody signed in a little bit earlier and wasn't able to get in, we apologize. Glad you're here now, and we look forward to seeing you again at 11:30 Eastern, 8:30 Pacific. Okay, does anyone have any questions about anything I said before? If so, please put it into the chat. Okay, great. So if any questions come up at any time, feel free to drop them into the chat. Oh, okay, there's one. Hold on a minute. What has your experience been in open houses with the new NAR rules and forms? How do you feel it's changed you and your ability to obtain buyers buyer yours. Okay, got it. I work in California, so perhaps the experience different. Okay, thank you, Joyce. I'm going to pause on the question, and I'm going to see what other questions we get over time, and we're going to assemble questions like this into different conversations where we can kind of address them together. So if that's all right with you, we'd like to postpone that a little bit. Also, my answers to some questions and Kate's answers will be quite different. And so we'll see. Obviously, everyone has different perspectives. If we ask this question of all of you, all of you would have different answers as well. Sarah's asking, what is your more desirable topic to coach on? For me, most of my work with people is how do you master the interpersonal space with other human beings? How do you get from I win 80% of my pitches to I win 100? How do I get from my client not quite trusting me to trusting me absolutely and just going with whatever I say without ever questioning? How do I communicate my value to others in a way that they get it? Those kinds of things are at the heart of the work that I've been doing over the last 20 years. If you're going to ask me something about, something that should go into this contract or that contract, definitely that's a topic that Kate would handle much more effectively than I can. So my work for 20 years has been focused on how do two human beings come together to create the greatest value. And so my goal for all of you is to never lose another pitch, never lose another client, get every possible referral, live off of referrals and never have to go after any other business if you don't want to. All of that stuff is in my particular space. So for example, when Chirag was talking about MedC yesterday, Chirag and I came up with MedC together when we formed a business because we wanted something that was simple and easy for everyone to create a powerful and influential connection on those that they're working with. So those are the kinds of things that certainly I would add more commentary to than others. But remember, these conversations are fundamentally not about me and they're not about Kate. They're about you. And so we're here to help you have a conversation amongst all of you, sharing your values, sharing your expertise, sharing your knowledge and experience so that others can benefit. So that's why I say it takes a little practice to get used to it. For most of us, we're used to coming on these calls or any other coaching calls, sitting back and listening, and what we get is what we get. But the mastermind space is really different. It takes a little practice to get used to how to contribute to it. So don't worry about how you're contributing or whatever. Just put it right out there, and I'll try to guide everybody as we go a little bit so that we can get the most out of everybody's input. Okay, a couple other comments here. Let me just check these for a minute. Love some mastermind discussion regarding business development, since that's an area not really addressed in this coaching. Certainly, we'll be talking about business development going forward. What would be the best message to use when talking to clients about the changes and talking more about the type messaging? Okay, great. So this is all great. I'll ask any of you as you continue to think about this, please send me an email anytime after today. Just say david@chirag.coaching. Here are some topics that I think I would like to hear more about or be in a conversation with people about, and let's see where that goes. We'll put everything together with this week and next week. I'm sure people will have other ideas too. We'll assemble it all. We'll create some themes. Maybe we'll do things on a certain scheduled basis. It really depends on where your interests lie. And so we'll make it work for all of you. Okay, so let's talk. I just mentioned MedC, for example. So let's talk today. Let's practice a little bit about being part of a MedC conversation. So Chirag and I created MedC. How many people here are not familiar with what MedC means? Okay, great. How many people here have ever made a conscious effort to use MedC with a client? Okay, some yeses, some nos. Great. So let me just ask you, for those of you who have some experience using MedC, what is it that you think in the way that you do it has made it successful for you? What kind of an insight could you share with someone who doesn't have so much experience with it to help them do it right away? So someone please raise your hand, or you can drop something in the chat either way. I saw, whose hand was that? Was that Chad with your hand up? Chad, please take yourself off mute if you would and let us know.
I think one of the things that makes it work best is to not overthink it. When I first was practicing with Chirag and some of the role plays, I would keep like doing my MedC and talk. And he was like, no, just ask the question, get the answer, and move on. And I think when you start to do that, it works so much better.
Yeah, got it. Thank you. Like all frameworks like that, it's a little difficult when you first do it. You're kind of thinking consciously, should I go to the next topic yet? Or should I ask some more questions about this or something? A little bit difficult in the beginning, but ultimately it should be easy. It should be natural. And brief is probably better than too long. So thanks for that, Chad. Miriam, I see your hand up.
I love them at sea because it helps us, helps me to get away from the presentation like a cookie cutter thing, but focus on their needs, and you get more of a conversation going. And if you doing them at sea, you become their ally more so than the realtor. So I love Metsi.
Got it. Thank you. Let me ask you, Miriam, can you think of a moment, like, how do you know when MedC has been working for you? What is the signal that, like, okay, this is working, this is going well?
You can see the people getting more interactive, more open as into responding. And one of because it was in the beginning this year, I was introduced to a client and she had dealt with some agents who didn't do a good job. So she had lost a little bit of her faith in the realtor community. And basically after I did the Met-C with her, she said, yeah, let's move forward. And where do I sign? That was really quick. That was extreme.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Got it. Thank you. You'll know that it's really working because there's a shift that you see in the client. They start asking questions. They sit up a little bit differently. They'll respond to what your words are. Like, you'll put something out there as some kind of an offering and they're just like, okay. There's a shift that we make in our mind when we are in this collaborative space. If anyone's familiar with the work of like Judy Glazer, conversational intelligence, there's a shift that our mind makes when we're in that space of collaboration and trust, which is totally different from uncertainty, right? Like trust uncertainty. So we could talk more about that at another time. Let me hear from Carol first and then Deborah.
I just wanted to say about the Med-C that as Chirag has pointed out, most of the time we're in a presentation and it's just the agent sitting there talking and spewing at the mouth.
Yeah.
And it completely shifts that. So it becomes about the client. And as we know, people like to talk about themselves. So it changes the focus to them and lets them come out and really tell us some things that we may not know or may have missed because we're just sitting there talking the whole time. So they're telling us things that are key points to us that become very important to then tailor our service to them with what they want. So it's just wonderful because it lays it all out for us. And I have to tell you that as I've used it, people are very like surprised. So the client is like, oh my gosh, whoa, it's about me, It's not like I'm the greatest, and all that kind of stuff. And they're kind of taken aback by it, but they really like it. They really, really like it. And it does create a quicker bond with someone that it might take you a long time to get to that place otherwise. So I think it's a total game changer.
Got it. Thank you. I could talk more about why it helps promote the bonding experience. Maybe I'll do that at another time, but let's hear from Deborah and Martha first.
Yeah, I mean, exactly what Carol said. And I've noticed it just sets you apart immediately. People are like, wow, no one's ever asked me that before. And then if you frame it in such a way of, I want to know how to serve you best, everyone's different. They really, it really does get them thinking, and perhaps thinking that you are a little bit different than the average agent.
Got it. Thank you, Deborah. Martha?
Hi, I just wanted to share a quick experience I had with the Med-C. So I had gotten a referral from another Compass agent. I met with the clients. I started to work through the Med-C, and it was the first time I had ever used Med-C. And when I first started talking with them, they told me they were meeting with other agents and they expected to make a decision by the end of the week. And as I progressed through the Med-C, they then said, we'll probably make a decision within a day or two. And I said, okay, that's great. And I finished up and got in my car and started to leave. And on the way back to the office, they called me and said, we'd like to list with you. And I said, great, that's wonderful. And we, set up the next step. And when I got home, I called the person that had given me the referral and I said, did they really talk to other agents? And he said, well, I think they talked to one, but what they liked was that you asked a lot of questions. So I was a devotee to the Med-C after that and realized how powerful it was.
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh wait, someone just had a hand up. That was that John? John, you had your hand up?
I did.
Please, go ahead.
So I'm a new realtor and just starting, so it worked perfectly for me. Yesterday I had the training and last night I had to speak with a buyer for the first time who's been a little difficult. And it was brought to me from my team leader and it just flew right through. It took it off of me having to say, I can do this and I can do that. And when I'm all new, turning it back to them and asking them questions. And before you know it, they were just welcoming everything, looking forward to meeting and willing to sign the buyer agency agreement that they had big concerns with in the beginning. So it worked like a charm for me.
Got it. Well, congratulations to all of you who are using it effectively. What we really want to get at here is how can we use it effectively, right? I mean, even without any tips or tricks experience, John's a great example of this. He just takes it and uses it and gets a good result. That means it's really powerful. But of course, there are ways for us to perhaps enhance it or enhance our delivery of it in a way that's even more impactful. For those of you who've been on my calls before, you know that my perspective is that it's not about P&P, it's about C&C. And what I mean by that is working with your clients is not about persuasion or performance. It's about connection and contribution. Most of us go into pitches. We want to work with a client. We want to persuade or perform in a certain way that they'll say, wow, I want a piece of that. That person's great. And so we're self-conscious. We're thoughtful about how do I talk about myself? How do I say all these wonderful things that I'm going to do for somebody? And of course, that's a certain way of approaching sales. But Med-C comes from a completely different point of view, which is about establishing connection and contribution. And so by asking questions rather than saying something, for example, you're immediately accessing where it is that person happens to be in his or her life, whatever it is they're bringing into the space. And when we say, meet a client where they are, what we're trying to do is to understand what are the worries and the concerns and the interests and the excitement and all those things that they're carrying with them into the interaction with you. And so the Med-C offers a very simple and useful way to connect to their reality in a way that they recognize that you're connecting with them. And then when you feed back what you heard and you say something like, hey, my goal is to address all of these interests and make sure we won't repeat any of these disappointments, et cetera, whatever it is you say, then you're offering a contribution to them that's explicit. They're hearing from you that you want to make sure that this happens or make sure that doesn't happen, whatever it is you're responding to. And for them, that's a contribution. And so in that moment, you've proved to them that you're connected to them and that you want to contribute to them. And that's a world apart from somebody up there on stage, dance like a dancing bear saying, hey, listen to all these wonderful things I can do for you. That's performance and persuasion. So let me ask anyone else. Does anyone else who has experience with the Med-C have a tip or a trick or a way of sharing the Med-C with clients that's worked effectively for you that you think would be useful for someone else to know about? Or I can turn that around to the opposite, which is who's had an experience with the Med-C where it didn't go well and they kind of like thought about it afterwards and realized that, they should have done it this way or could have done it differently. Sarah, let's start with you.
I would just say not so much as an experience, but we do have the role-playing groups, and that has helped drastically with me just to interact then by using the Med-C with clients. Because when you're in those groups, it sounds very scripted. And then when you use it in reality, it starts rolling off more naturally by having that footprint of the scripted area, the script first.
Yeah, role playing is so important. And, when I first came into the real estate business, I was surprised that more people don't practice role playing. Because as Chirag says, 80% of all the deals are the same, right? You've got the same process, essentially, the same types of conversations. Yeah, each client is a little bit different and there's some unique aspects, but there's certain things that you're going to have to do over and over and over and over and over again. And when we hear how people handle some of those situations, it's like, is that the best you got? We could do better than that. Let's keep practicing some things. Let's try a different approach. And so certainly for the people who are in the different groups who've, talked about those things and experienced those things over and over and over again, like Sarah or Miriam's comment, is so valuable. Let me ask anyone, we just have a minute or two. How many of you have any nervousness or concern about Med-C, about your ability to do it effectively? And, what is that? Is there something that doesn't feel comfortable about it to you, or doesn't feel right, or seems awkward, or something like that that's holding you back from either trying it or perhaps being as effective as you might like to be? All right, let's hear from Miriam again.
I think the constant role playing is key. Right now in the accountability groups, we're doing a lot of role playing with regards to the new NAR settlement. But and that makes me a little bit rusty with the Med-C. I think keeping role playing the Med-C is key for me.
Got it. Thank you, Miriam. Martha?
This might deviate a little from your question, but I sometimes suffer with anxiety. So for me, it's very nerve-wracking to sit down with a client to talk about anything. And the Med-C has actually helped with that because it takes away, it's kind of like AI. It takes away the fear of the blank page, right? So it gives me a framework to be able to work with. So for me, it's been very helpful with that instead of making me nervous.
Yep, got it. It gives you a certain track to follow. And even if you don't follow it perfectly every time, still, even if you get 70% of it right, or 70% of it pretty good, you're going to get a positive result. All right, I'm going to hear briefly from Rob and Donna, and then I think we'll be out of time.
My experience, the most challenging part was asking about their disappointments from a realtor or service provider, because I felt like they would bring up, oh, the last realtor was just awful, and and I would think, oh, well, they're going to infer that I'm going to be the same. But what it actually does, it gives me the opportunity to acknowledge that person's ineffectiveness or whatever, and address it head on and say, well, this is how I want to make it better for you in this situation. And you take whatever they said and make note of it and tailor the way you work with them. Right?
Yep. Got it. Thank you, Rob. That's a natural concern to have. And the reality is, yes, what you're saying, if you say to them explicitly, hey, I want to make sure that never happens to you as long as you're working with me, we're going to make sure that doesn't happen, then certainly they know that they're never going to have the same experience with you as the other, as long as you come through. All right, Donna, last one for today.
Sometimes I feel awkward when I'm dealing with an older person who's going to a retirement community, or when I'm working with like an estate and, someone whose parents have just passed, they're selling their parents' house. And I'm like, so what are your motivations? What are you, most excited about? They're not, they're selling their house, but they have to move to a retirement home and they have to give up their car. Like, I feel like I have to come up with a new way of approaching someone that's not really excited about where they're going. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense. And so you have to read the client as best you can. Certainly, the Med-C, like any framework, is not going to be perfect. Like, you can't interview every single person with the same set of interview questions for the rest of your life, right? Situations are unique. What you want to do is create connection. And so if you have some reason to believe that this person doesn't have any excitements about the move, then you shouldn't go there, because it would be a disconnecting experience. Right? You're saying, let's talk about excitement, but the person has no excitement. They're going to see that as a disconnecting experience rather than connecting. So the things that they might have concerns about, they might have, on their mind, meeting them where they are, is concerns and worries and fears and other things like that. So certainly you'd want to make sure that you're going to where you think they are. And what you want to demonstrate is your ability to be there with them and support them, right? It's connection to where they are and contribution to whatever that looks like from their point of view.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, everybody. We're a little over time today. Thank you all for your contributions to the conversation today. Everyone did a good job who contributed. I hope everyone else next time will bring themselves, and maybe we'll have some more discussion with a whole range of people. Please, I want those of you who tend to sit back to really dive into these calls on Wednesdays and be a piece of what it is we're all creating here for each other. In the meantime, send any messages to me or to Kate about things you'd like to explore in the future, and we'll figure out how to tailor this thing to your particular needs and interests so we can focus on the things that are most important to you. Thank you, everybody. Have a great week. We'll see you next week. Kate will be here.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Mm-mm.